Apple released a new iPad mini this week. We'll talk about the new tablet and how Apple's new approach to product releases may influence your decision to buy one or not. That's coming up on this episode of the Macworld Podcast. Welcome to the Macworld Podcast. I'm Roman Loyola here with Jason Cross.
Good morning.
And Michael Simon.
Hello, sir.
Before we jump into it, in case you didn't know, the Macworld Podcast is now on YouTube. If you actually want to see us do this show, go to youtube.com/@MacWorldPodcast and like and subscribe to the channel. The audio version is still available if you don't care to see if I'm in an FBI interrogation room or not. If you saw the video right now, you would think, why is Roman in an FBI interrogation room?
A broom closet.
Yeah, it's a long story involving the office and security cards that weren't working. But give us a look on YouTube. That's the Macworld Podcast channel on YouTube. Apple on Tuesday released a new iPad mini. This model replaces the one that was released 3 years ago?
3 years, over 3 years, yeah. 3 years and a month. It was tied to the iPhone. That was back in like the COVID we're still in like the COVID production delays.
The good old days of COVID.
Yeah. So it was alongside the Apple Watch, that event. So yeah, it's been a long time. And it's funny, like I was anyway, like this was a shock. We knew it was coming this month, or we were pretty sure it was coming this month. Yeah. But there was usually there's like a leak that says Apple has a press release scheduled for Tuesday, or someone has some notion that something's coming out, and there was just nothing. It was just like, oh wow, here's the iPad mini.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that might mean maybe there's not going to be an event. Maybe they'll just release.
Yeah, that was one of the products that we were expecting Apple would tie into this October event that we've been waiting to get an invitation for.
This is Mac, about Mac stuff. I mean, it's possible this was the only iPad and they just wanted to, then they could just make it a Mac event. But I mean, It seems weird if what we're going to get at the Mac event is what is expected. It seems weird that they'd have like a fully redesigned Mac Mini, like an actual new design for the first time in like 10 years or whatever, and not have any kind of just throw it up on the web. There'll maybe be a video on the web, but do that, like not have. Yeah, it seems weird to not have an event, but if they're leaking out products, maybe there's no event.
Yeah, last year there was the Scary Fast event, and it was all Macs. It was the M4, M4 Pro, M4 Max, MacBook Pro, and the iMac. And
M3.
Right. Oh, yeah, M3, sorry. But there was nothing, like, I think at the time we thought the iPad mini was coming then too, and it did not.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been waiting a while for this one.
Yeah, it's been a long time. 3 years is an absurdly long time to wait for a product that is barely new. Like, there's not much that's new about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a processor upgrade and then a few of the other sort of expected things that kind of go around with that, right?
Yeah.
So it upgrades to the A17 Pro, which means...
But not the full A17 Pro. It has a 5-core GPU. I thought that was interesting. So it's like...
did the old A17 Pro have a 6-core?
6-core, yeah. Okay. So it's not quite that chip, but I don't think anyone's going to notice on the iPad mini, and it brings all the things, the ray tracing and all the benefits of that chip. It just has one fewer graphics core for some reason.
Yeah.
Jason likes to think that, or not likes to think, Jason always points out that like these cut rate chips are the result of like manufacturing issues where they make, you'll explain it better than I do, Jason, but like it's like a core that doesn't work, so they collect those for another
when they etch the chip into a wafer of silicon that's 12 14 inches in diameter, a circular thing and stuff, there's some errors. Sometimes they have to test them, and you can if your chip is designed right, you can disable if the error is in the logic area or the cache area of a particular core, you can disable that core. And instead of tossing out that chip in the trash, you can just have like a less powerful chip. You just need to design your chip such that that can be done. It is extremely common in, PC graphics cards and stuff like that. Like they've all been doing this for years and years and years because that way you don't have to have a perfect chip in order to sell it. You can sell it as a less.
Is it possible that Apple stockpiled a bunch of these 5-core chips over the last 12 months? Like, is that a thing that could happen, or is it just they're just making it that way now?
It's possible. It's also, well, no, it wouldn't be. There are other differences with the Pro as well. I was saying it's also possible that it's an A17 and they just added more RAM, but like no, there's differences in the video encoders and stuff.
And they call it the Pro, like they wouldn't call it the Pro if it wasn't the Pro.
Yeah, and it's a better.
They didn't announce the RAM that Jason just mentioned, but we assume
they never do.
They never do for the A series chips, only the M chips. So we assume
because
that
you can buy different amounts.
Right.
In the M chips, you can buy different amounts. So we assume it's 8 because it does support Apple Intelligence.
Apple Intelligence, yeah.
And everything needs 8 gigs. Other than that, they bumped the starting storage, which they've needed to do for a while. I mean, since 3 years ago when that one came out and the low end one was 64 gigs, we're like 64.
Right.
So that's up to 128.
In 2021, it was barely enough. In 2024, like 64 gigs is, particularly with Apple Intelligence, like there's no way. Like you just got too much going on your home screen and stuff. Too many apps.
Yeah. They updated Apple Pencil support. So I mean, the Apple Pencil Pro wasn't out when they had the old thing. So it supports that and not the old 2nd gen Apple Pencil. Better video and audio processing, Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.3, just like the standard.
Yeah.
This is what all iPhones and iPads have now, kind of stuff. 3 years of progress and all those kind of features.
And also, they didn't change the display at all, correct? It's the same display as before.
Exactly the same
thing.
Display,
so same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. The specs. If you compare the specs, it's identical. The charging port is USB 3.1 Gen 2. Supports speeds up to 10 gigs, which is double. Not that anyone's going to realize that. I mean, it's an iPad Mini. I don't think anyone's using it in that way, but if they are, you'll get faster file transfers, which is nice. It only supports eSIM. The nano SIM slot is gone. Yep. The camera supports Smart HDR4, which, okay. If you're taking pictures.
Yeah, that just means it uses the better camera processing of the newer chip. That's just
it's the same hardware, right?
Yeah, they didn't change. As far as we know, they didn't swap out to a newer sensor or anything like that.
Yeah.
So.
And it has the iPad Air colors. So Space Gray Starlight, purple, and blue. And the purple and blue are, very pale. And if you like pink, that's gone. And that's it. Like the camera is still on the short end. They didn't give it the landscape camera. Like as Roman just said, the screen is exactly the same. It's not OLED or anything like that, which we didn't expect. But it's not same thinness or thickness, however you want to look at it. It's it's an iPad Mini with a new chip and a couple of new things. I mean, the Bluetooth, I have no idea what 5.3 does that 5.0 doesn't. Wi-Fi 6E is fine. You're not going to, you need the router. And even if you do, it's not going to be like significantly faster. And, that's it. Like, why did this take 3 years to come out?
I mean, it's very possible that it was going to happen last year. And then they're just like, well, but then it's expensive to do the Pro last year, the A17 Pro.
Yeah.
We have nothing else that'll run Apple Intelligence. We know we're working on all this because it comes out later than the phones and stuff. So they may have just said like, look, this isn't a big seller. Let's just hold off a year.
All right, so why not tack it onto the iPhone event then? Like, why now? It's just I'd love to be in Apple's like planning meetings when they decide, like, we're going to, on Tuesday, October 15th, we're going to release the iPad mini via press release with these changes.
Yeah. I mean,
And also
part
why-
of it is why, because it's not a big change. It's, you know, like we've just said, it's a processor update and not much else. So they, you know, it doesn't deserve its own big video thing.
I agree with that, but
well, it's not very different.
It would have been
tack
10
it onto
seconds.
you could tack it onto that event or even release it that day, not add it to the event and just say, oh, this is new also.
Yeah, they've done that before. Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like, I think there might be a conscious effort by Apple to separate iPhone and iPad marketing.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to launch iPhone and iPad stuff together.
Yeah. Because I can't remember a time when they released them at the same time. They'll do Macs and iPads together. Or I don't even know if that's true now. But yeah, I feel like they always.
Was there a spring event when the last?
Actually,
the last iPhone SE came out, did they do an iPad update at the same time as that?
They may have done that. They may have done that.
It went the spring thing, and I think that's the last time.
Yeah, I think when Apple used to do springtime education events, they would release like a MacBook and an iPad, entry-level iPad at the same time. So
that was for a couple of years there they did that.
When they had the last spring event.
The iPhone SE was 2022. That was the peak performance event. That was with the Max. That didn't make a lot of sense either. So
that was performance stuff. That was really not they just kind of threw the iPhone SE out there. It was really about the studio display.
An event slot. Like there was nothing new about that. Like you can argue the iPad Mini is more important because of Apple Intelligence. Also, can we stop using "Hello Apple Intelligence" as a tagline? Now it's three products that have the same tagline.
It's going to be all of them. That's the tagline.
The new MacBook, the new M4. Oh no, I guess the old MacBook support it too, so they don't have to do it there. Right. Now there's just one iPad that doesn't. The 10th gen does not support Apple Intelligence. I assume it'll get an update, but maybe not. I don't know.
It would have to get an update at least to the A17 Pro.
Yeah, right.
Or I don't know how affordable it is, the A18 non-Pro chip. Like, I don't know how affordable that is to Apple, but they don't typically put a chip like that into the... That's like going to go to next year's basic iPad. So
that would be a very Apple move to put an A18 in the cheaper iPad and an A17 Pro in the $499.
It kind of would, yeah.
Just to add a little layer of confusion.
Just like you thought you had this figured out.
Yeah. So I guess speaking of figuring out, we spend a lot of our time here at Macworld trying to figure out when Apple's going to release stuff. It's somewhat predictable.
That's Apple journalism. That's 90% of what every Apple site does is when is the next thing coming out?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And according to a report by Mark Gurman, Apple is considering going into a less frequent product release cycle.
Yeah, the next mini will be released in 5 years. So Roma's talking about, there was a report, I guess a week ago, maybe was it? No, it was the week ago.
The last week.
So it's like it was some of Gurman's like usual taking a small rumor and then extrapolating it into a larger landscape, and kind of making the point that maybe Apple is moving away from like annual product launches. But the only things that are really annual are the iPhone and the Apple Watch. Have been ever since they've started. They've been a yearly release, and kind of the MacBook Pro, kind of like it's close to a year.
Yeah,
I mean everything else is just kind of whenever.
Well, that was
like the iMac took a while. The iPads are whenever Apple feels like it. So.
That was sort of his point. Is it was that and the software thing about how like lining everything up for one big software update in the fall is taking its toll. He pointed out how they had to pull the iOS 18 from the M4 MacBook, M4 iPads, because it bricked that, and then they had a problem with the Apple Watch update that they had to pull and stuff. So it's getting to be too much. They're starting to launch products with features that are coming, like that are built around software features that aren't ready yet. Like Apple Intelligence, the whole thing. This is the first time we've seen Apple say, like at WWDC, say, this is the big feature and it's coming out in stages and it's going to be some of it's next year. There's always been parts of iOS that come out later, but like this is the big feature, the big thing that they're selling the iPhones with. And they're like, and it's going to come out in phases. And the marketing certainly hasn't been that, but like in their public statements and their descriptions of it, they've shown that. And so I think his point is that they may need to embrace that instead of trying to line everything up for a big thing in the fall, just kind of starting to spread this out more, starting to spread out the updates. I don't know how they do that from a software standpoint, though, because some of the, like, it all needs to work together in an ecosystem. They can't update iOS and not macOS, right? Like, if there's features that need to work together. So
yeah, I mean, the only thing I could really see them doing is being very clear at WWDC about this is September, this is December, this is February, which they kind of did with Apple Intelligence. I mean, they weren't that specific, but it was clear. They made it pretty clear that, hey, you're not getting everything in September.
But I think we're already starting to see this sort of happen, and like they didn't. Garrett Gurman didn't even mention, and I can't imagine that Apple would just not release a new iPhone every year. Like I
can't either, but at some point it's going to get really difficult to differentiate between those models. I mean, this year you can tell. I guess not.
Well, it doesn't need to, because they don't need people to upgrade every year. They just need, whenever you have a 4-year-old iPhone that you want to replace, there just needs to be a new one for you, right? And I think that investors would riot if Apple started
it would
to take
definitely
longer.
Mess with like the sales schedule. And I mean,
but it can be at different times, though. And I think we're already I think Gurman's point was we're already starting to see this, and it's just going to get spread out more. It's just going to be fewer, just like 2 big events with all your big products, and then all the little things like Apple TV or whatever can happen whenever. It's gonna. I think it's going to be, everything else is going to start to be spread out more. And if that helps Apple make more interesting products, then that's like, imagine how much cooler iPhone 16 maybe could have been if it could have released in February, and they could have just been keeping it and getting all this Apple Intelligence stuff going, and it would launch and have that. It would be the first phones to have that, and it would have a bunch of features. It would have all the image stuff and everything going, and you would really be able to say, this does something totally new that none of the other ones do. That would have been a much more exciting thing.
Because of Apple's recent success, it's been a while since Apple has had to kind of, I guess, pay attention to quarterly they always pay attention to quarterly results, but the pressure of it is a lot different than it used to be, and pressure from investors. So I'm wondering how that works. Like, say, for instance, they decided to delay this iPhone 16 release to February so it can have all the full Apple Intelligence features. But then that affects that quarter's bottom line.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah.
The iPhone still does, right?
Right.
More than anything.
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, Apple makes so much money that they can kind of just say, this is what we're going to do. Investors need to, get in line with that. But
if you look at the quarter before, if you look at the quarter before September, the summer quarter, essentially, like, they're still selling nearly 40 billion worth of iPhones. Like, it's not like people aren't buying them. Yeah. Like, there's not like a gigantic dip before the iPhone comes out. Most people don't even really know, like we do. And there are fans of Apple, of course, all over the place that pay attention and know I'm getting this new iPhone in a couple of weeks. But I get asked all the time, when's the next iPhone coming out? Like in September, in August, in June, in January. Like people don't really follow this stuff as closely as we think they do. They go into the store, ask for the newest iPhone. If that's the 15, I'll get it. If that's the 16, I'll get it. Like, it's not like I'm sure it would matter. And I'm sure, listen, 1%, a 1% dip for Apple is monumental.
Yeah, this
but
big
I think
quarter
the shift
is a big
would kind of work its way out.
This quarter is a huge quarter, and it's a big quarter. And if they if Apple came out and let's say they gave everyone plenty of time, it was more like WWDC, and they said, the new iPhones will be out early next year or something. There'd be immediate 5% stock drop because everybody wants that next quarter to be huge, right?
Yes.
It overall, it's not going to impact the money that Apple makes at all.
Right.
It would just be the stock price because people will just buy it next year. Like it's not like you said, they don't care that much. Mm-hmm. There's nobody who's going to go, well, if the iPhone doesn't come out in September, I'm buying an Android. Like that's just not a thing. Like it's they're just going to release that money the next year.
Yeah. And I guarantee if Apple were to do that, Samsung and Google would do the same thing because the pressure's on them too to follow Apple, to keep up with this annual. Like it's brutal for everybody.
When this report came out and I started thinking about this, I got to thinking about how like game consoles work and how much better it would be if I not an 8-year cycle like a game console or something, but wouldn't it be nice if now that we've gotten to this sort of technological plateau of iPhones and stuff, wouldn't it be great if a new iPhone could come out every 3 years or 4 years?
Yeah.
And it would be massively different, right? Like the processor would be not 10%, 15% faster, it'd be twice as fast. The neural engine would be 4 or 5 times as fast. The massive GPU change. Like it would be the kind of change of like
design and everything,
physical new design, new camera stuff, like drastic improvements, plus all the drastic new software that enables going along with it. It would be a lot like when you go from a PlayStation 4 to a PlayStation 5. Like this is a massive change.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean they don't make new iOS every year, just like they keep updating software for everything else every year.
New games and stuff,
But and that gives developers that sort of stability. They know what they're targeting, and every year they could do just like the game console guys do, like new colors and stuff, just enclosures and plastic and stuff. Apple's totally not going to do that, but it's not crazy to start giving them more than 12 months to go from one iPhone to the next, even if that's 14 months or 15 months or something, just to go like, well, we can line up more great features if we could. I wonder how many times an iPhone, like let's say a cool new feature for the iPhone 14 was supposed to be part of the iPhone 13. But it was going to miss it by a month. We need to be in volume production in June or July, right? Or in order to have 30 million of these things to sell in September. Like, and if they just had another month or two, they could have gotten that iPhone 14 feature in the iPhone 13, right? Like, I bet that happened a lot.
Sure.
And it.
I mean,
I'm all for just delay
rumors.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. I'm not a gamer at all, but why is it that consoles have such a long time between updates when laptops and TVs and phones and everything else that we buy that has those same, relatively same parts, hard drive, processor, etc. Like, why does it take 5 to 8 years for a new model, a new console to come out?
It's sort of part of it's an economic issue, and part of it's a technical issue. So the economic side of it is traditionally they sell consoles on sort of the razors and blades model, right? Like Microsoft and Sony make no money selling up an Xbox or a PlayStation. they sell it basically at cost plus, marketing and shipping and stuff like that. They're not making 30%. They're making 10%, and that gets eaten up in marketing and it's gone, right? So they make money whenever anyone sells a game for the Xbox or the PlayStation or whatever. They've got to pay 20 or 30%, just like the App Store model. And that's where they make all their money. So the first one is between R&D and production and all that other stuff. They don't make their money back unless people start selling those games for that console.
Okay.
Like that console doesn't become profitable unless they get stack up several games. Number one. Number two, the technological part of it is if I'm a game developer and it takes me 3-4 years to make a brand new AAA game or something, I want to launch it on a system that's got a big installed base.
Okay.
Or I'll never make my money back. And I can't have that technology be a moving target while I'm developing all the time.
Okay.
They like a nice stable. The whole point of a console is you press go and it plays, and you don't have to worry with settings and compatibility and all the stuff that goes along with like PC gaming. Like what resolution? Did you update your drivers? All the
Right. Okay. That makes a
all
lot
your
of sense.
settings.
Yeah.
So. But it can go the other way. Like you said, there's PC gaming. It's hugely popular and successful. There's new hardware every year.
Well, every year, and it runs.
And
the
developers
games,
deal with that, but they don't like dealing with that.
Yeah, right.
They don't.
I mean, they just came
definitely
out
don't.
with the like the PlayStation 5 Pro.
Yeah.
Does that require developers to do like something different to make it work with that, or is that close enough?
The case of those Pro ones, they did a PlayStation 4 Pro, they did an Xbox One X and stuff like that. And in those cases, you'll notice they keep the CPU the same.
Okay.
And they just kind of boost the graphics performance, and they really keep the whole platform the same, so that if you're a developer, all you have to do is like check a box that says, well, if it's the Pro, run it at this higher resolution.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Or lift the frame rate cap to this because it's got more graphics juice. And then when the PlayStation 6 comes out, it'll have a neural engine, and it'll have all kinds of stuff. It'll have a bunch of stuff. So yeah, those Pro models are meant to be like, it runs the same stuff. And in fact, they make those requirements. You can't make a game that requires the PlayStation 5 Pro. It has to run on the regular PlayStation 5.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that was informative. Thank you. Where were we?
doing
We're
that
still
with
bashing the iPad Mini.
the idea of doing that with the iPhone or Apple Watch.
Yes.
Like we've talked about this with the Apple Watch all the time. The Apple Watch
has been saying for years that there's no reason.
This does not need to be a yearly thing.
Right.
I mean, could we see a
changing enough every year?
Could we see a pattern where, like, it's the iPhone 1 year, the iPad the next year, the Apple Watch the year after that, the MacBook, the Macs a year after?
If Apple releases one product a year, they might have trouble.
Right, or it might be two or something like that. Or
I think more of their products and software are going to start to look like what they have started to do with iPad already. Where iPad, we always say iPad could happen at any time. Any iPad could drop at any
like,
time.
It literally happened today. Yeah, right.
It happened today. We got the M4 first and an iPad Pro in the summer. Like they drop in the spring. It could be anything. iPads are anytime. I don't think it's going to be that random with iPhone, because iPhone is the big money maker. But all their other products, I think they're just going to slowly smooth it out to where it's like you just get more time to get these things to where they need to be, and not get embarrassed by software launches that break things and stuff, which is starting to happen.
It's kind of an age-old conundrum in the tech industry, probably like in other industries where you make product, where does the calendar drive the production, or does the production drive the release schedule?
Apple with that stuff is absolutely calendar driven. I mean, what WWDC is
for a lot of
iOS,
stuff,
macOS releases in September. I mean, and it's a tough schedule, particularly since they have 7 different operating systems now, and there's rumors of Home OS too, which is another one. Like, that's not an easy task, especially when you're pushing to like, I don't know, 2 billion people at once. Like it's a miracle that it works at all.
And they have to make versions that operate differently in the EU.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
So like it's just
like completely different versions now. Yeah,
it's getting to be this Gordian knot of like complicated, interconnected things that they just don't have time to sort out if it's all going to ship within a 2-month window in the fall. So I'm personally in favor of it, not only because it makes it a lot more exciting to like have surprises again, to know that Apple isn't so predictable, but also just because it's clear that we've reached a point with so many of these product lines where in order to make them exciting, they just need a little more time.
And people are holding on to them longer than a year now anyway.
Yeah,
it used to be where people ran to the store every 12 months. That's not the case. If I wasn't here, I probably wouldn't have gotten. I would have stuck with the 15 Pro Max for a year. That's the first time I ever would have said that. So
yeah, I'd definitely be on an every other year kind of.
And that's schedule. Not an indictment of the iPhone. It's the fact that it's so good now that they easily last 2 years.
All the phones from everybody are,
of course, yeah.
Not that special, and it's like hardware wise the thing.
Yep.
And when it is something exciting, it's usually software that is at least partially artificially locked to whatever the new device is. You know, half of whatever makes a new Pixel special is
the software. Yeah,
it's the software, and it's software that probably could have run on the old Pixel, or in some cases it's coming to the old Pixel, but they market it as like a feature of the new Pixel. You know, so yeah, I just think we're beyond the yearly smartphone update cycle.
But they, as we were just saying, like they can't just stop that. Like it's got
they can't just stop it. It's going to have to be a glide path transition.
Right.
Yeah, and that's assuming Gurman's right, but I kind of hope he is, because I'd much rather have a less frequent, more exciting iPhone.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But then what will we write about?
We'll write about whatever it's coming. We got 3 more months of rumors.
What's coming?
We're all right.
Yeah, exactly. we're fine.
Well, that does it for this episode of the Macworld Podcast, episode 905. Thanks to Jason Cross.
Thank you.
Thanks to Michael Simon.
Thank you, sir.
And thanks to you, the audience. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to the Macworld Podcast in the podcast app, on Spotify, or through any other podcast app. You can now subscribe to the new Macworld Podcast channel on YouTube. Do you have any comments or questions? Send us an email at podcast@macworld.com, or contact us through X, that's @Macworld, or on Threads, that's @Macworld_HQ, or on the Macworld Facebook page. Join us in the next episode of the Macworld Podcast as we talk about the latest in the world of Apple. See you next time. It's just been a frustrating morning. So,
oh yeah,
starting off, I'm not even in the studio because I can't get into studio. I'm in the old podcast room.
Yeah,
you guys can see it. It's just you can't tell when the walls end.
Now
it's basically
it used to have sound material on the walls, and they took it off.
All right. And then I sat at a desk and the sun came up and blinded me, and I had to try and find another desk, and the Mac I have wasn't working with any of the stations here, except for like one in one of the huddle room closets. So it was Anyways.
Happy Tuesday, Roman. At least it's a short week.
Anyways.